Okay, students, one of the first things that's usually done in a course is installing software necessary for it. However, in the SQL Server course, the installation of SQL Server isn't really requested until week 3. However, you might find that there might be some problem, and I don't want you to have a situation where you have a problem and we don't have time to get it resolved in week 3. So let's go ahead and install it here in week 1, and it generally is not a problem, but 1 out of every 50 students or so might have some contrary problem on the system. So we go here to Microsoft SQL Server. I don't really need to participate in a survey. Scroll down when you get to this particular thing, and you'll notice that there is a couple of different versions. Okay, don't choose any of these first 3. You have the choice between Express and Developer. I think mostly for what we're doing here, all we really need is Express. So download that and go up here to Save As, because it downloads a downloader, if you will. And then you can close the window, go to the SQL Server download thing, run it. You can go through a couple of different options here. I prefer to go through the custom option because of a couple of things. Don't worry, it's not a complicated process. It's just that it adds a couple of different features that you don't otherwise get. Okay, so specify SQL Server media download target location. Just take the default, do install. Now it does mention that it's available for Linux, but it won't work out as well for you. Some of the examples that I give you in the course are specific to the displays that I'll give you will be specific to Windows. The SQL code that I give you is not particularly unique to Windows. It's not particularly unique to really even SQL Server. There's a couple of things which might be slightly specific, but I will probably give you examples in MySQL, MySQL, whatever you want to call it, during the course, so that you can see comparisons and the similarities, of which there are many similarities. Now this is kind of a downloader installing the downloader, and then it comes up and it gives you this window. Now this is a very straightforward type of thing. You have a thing here at the top of this, and so click it. Now, you're going to get several screens from here, and basically you're going to click next, next, okay, next. I mean, this is really pretty straightforward. As long as everything is fine, everything is pretty much straightforward here. If you've had SQL Server installed before, either in another version or even if you've had this one installed, it's not particularly a problem, but sometimes you'll get a thing like this warning for the firewall. This is not a particular problem. Just go ahead. The firewall doesn't really block anything significant. We're using it on our machine only. We really don't want to open it up to external machines anyways. So next, accept the license terms. Next. There's no particular reason to undo this or to change this. So next. Named instance, SQL Express. If you have a different name here, it may be because you have some other version of SQL Server installed. Don't worry about it. Just leave it. Next. You can do either one of these. It doesn't really matter. Just next. You don't really need to do this, just do next. It's really kind of ironic. It's going to run through this particular thing, and yeah, don't change this. It's much easier just to let Windows do it. This will be your specific ID on the database. If you don't change this, then you don't have to put in a password. Accept. Next. Accept. I already had Python installed. I didn't think to remove it for that, but it doesn't matter. Next. As you can see, it's a lot of next, next, accept, next. This is not particularly difficult. This will take a little time, but in the end, it should turn out to be okay. I mean, we're near the end of this particular installation progress. It's not the total installation because this installs the database portion, but this database portion is just the database software. It's not the graphical user interface to the database. The database is totally usable without the graphical user interface, but in class it's just easier to find how to utilize the database, how to display the database, and so forth, how to display the data from the database. So, keeping in mind here, I'm going to go ahead and use up the time to make it clear. SQL Server is database software. A database is a file, and that file has data in it. And oftentimes we use those words interchangeably, but that's not accurate. Database software, whether it be DBMS or RDBMS, terms you'll learn, is software which accesses database files. And that's important. It's an important distinction, I think, for this course. Good grief, come on already. Install. I uninstalled this so that you could see the installation process, and also so that I had the latest greatest version without having to go through updates. There we go. Starting to move. Although I think at the end it's got some sort of long thing that it installs. Oh, there we go. SQL Server Discovery. It's checking the server. And you can scroll through and you can see you should all have these green check marks and the word here that say install successful. Okay, and then close this and it will bring you back to this screen. Now, the third thing down here is the SQL Server Management Tools, and sometimes we call this SSMS. It will take you to a web page, probably. Yeah. SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so then you'll see this in the middle of the screen, download SQL Server Management Studio. At the time of this recording, it's 18.9.2. Save the file. It will save it, I think, to my desktop. Still downloading. Almost there. SSMS is kind of like your visual connection to a database. There's actually going to come up with a few to start with. However, ultimately we are going to add another database which will be created by a very, very large SQL file. I need to see if it's available on Canvas. It should be. I'll make sure that it is. this to finish. I think it's finished now. Yep. Okay, so close this. Yeah, SSMS setup. And double click on it. Click yes. And you'll get this setup thing. Take the default. Click install. See, they've added Azure to the editor, which is not surprising. This doesn't take as long to install. This particular program is not too surprising. It has pieces of Visual Studio 2017's editor. Visual Studio 2019's editor is different and you'll see a lot of it expanded into Visual Studio 2022 eventually. It doesn't look any different on the surface, but it's definitely different. Okay, so we're almost done with this installation. I think I'd already done that. Yeah. Close this. If you go to the Start menu, you'll see SQL Server Management Studio. I typically pin this to the taskbar. Not sure why that's showing twice, but anyway, you double click that. And for some reason or another, it takes it a minute to come up. Now, all of this comes up and it's filled in with what needs to be there. So the only thing you really should have to do here is click connect. And you can see there's a folder with databases. There's just a couple of them there. They're part of the databases that are used by SQL Server to maintain order for the system. Now, I'll have to see here if Canvas has Chinook already in place. The password's already blocked, so I don't have to worry about it. Let's see, where is database? I think it's this one. Modules. syllabus. There it is. Now this says Chinook SQL. Somehow it's not spelled right, but that's all right. Now, I think both of these are the same thing. Let's try the bottom one and see. Oh, I guess not. Okay. And we'll go to the zip file and we will download this. Save as to the desktop. Okay, so that's what you'll do is you'll say Chinook SQL Server zip. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Meant to minimize. Oh. Okay, so here's Chinook. Get it out of there. Double click it, extract. You'll notice if you look at it there, it says Chinook SQL Server SQL. It is literally just an SQL file because the data is created from that file. So you can do new query, and then you can go file, open, file, and you have to go to the desktop because that's where I left it. And then go into the folder where I left it. Grab that file. And this is the SQL file which creates Chinook. Okay. Now this is a very long file, so I'm not going to go through line by line here. But anyway, there's a button up here which says execute. And you'll get some messages here, can it create, blah, 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 blah. It already exists on my machine, and I didn't erase it, but even if it says that, okay, if you've already created it or whatever, you can just ignore that. It says one row affected, so many rows affected, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now Chinook exists. And if you were to go to databases here now, query completed, didn't create it within here. Oh, because it already existed. Okay, yours should have it in here. I'm going to go here and say, I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. Attach. Add Chinook. Okay. Why? Add. Well, that's a problem you're not going to have. Okay, I'll fix it on mine, and then eventually I will have my Chinook. Actually, I know how I could fix it right now. I can go here. You won't have this, but I put this in. Let's see. Data. Okay. Whatever. Chinook. Bye, Chinook. Okay, so now back to this. I'm just going to say, okay, we have this. Execute. And that ends that problem. And there's Chinook. Okay, so yours will look like that after you run the execute the Chinook file. Now, you don't need to save this file once the database is connected, but if you do, you can do that. It's just up to you. Now, as an example, let's say that you want a new query here. I guess I didn't need to do that. And, you know, one of the first things that you'll learn, it has to do with selecting from a file, from a table. Select asterisk from, let's call it customer or whatever. You go in here and you say this, and then you'll go to tables, and you'll have various different ones. I'll use customer. Now you can drag and drop these, but make sure you hit the end key, because if you don't, it all disappears. Okay, so, and I didn't use asterisk, I used some other character. Okay, so now the reason why this is in squiggle, and this is a good point, this is the default database. You have to select Chinook, because if you don't select Chinook, it doesn't draw from Chinook just because you pulled from there and also. So you'll see the red squiggle goes away when you select Chinook. Execute, and here is your data from customer, and the asterisk up there means all customers, that are all of the lines that are in, all of the rows that are in customer. Okay, so that's an initial example, and you'll be doing more of these, and it's really quite easy, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Most people find this course pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's the, it's asking if I want to save that query. Sure, why not? No, fine, cancel. Just let me out. No. Okay, now then. Getting out. Now then, that's pretty much everything. Have a good day.